we live? Okay. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to the third lecture in Intact series on stepwells in India. As if you've been following this series, you would know that the first two lectures dealt with history and restoration of historical stepwells. So today, okay, are we good to go? We good to go? Okay. So today we are moving forward, and the lecture is going to very interestingly focus on contemporizing traditional water structure. It will be based, it's like a case study on Birkha Bawari, which is a 21st century stepwell in India. Also, as the earlier lectures brought out, that these exquisite stepwells were gradually abandoned and forgotten in favor of canal and piped water supply and various other reasons. However, after a gap of nearly a century, as ecological and sustainability issues took center stage amidst growing concern over deepening water crisis, it became vital that ancient wisdom of harnessing water be revisited and contemporized by resurrecting the traditional ones, creating new ones, and integrating the entire gamut of aqua architecture to build a sustainable water network. Thus, using traditional language in contemporary work, a new subterranean structure, Birkha Bawari, fashioned like a stepwell, was built in Umaid Heritage Housing Township in Jodhpur, which is a water-stressed city on the fringe of the Thar Desert of India. Just the location sounds very daunting, and let's see how what unfurls in the presentation. Moving on, with the capacity to hold over 17.5 million liters of rainwater, this Bavari and its unique structural system were designed by architect A. Mridul. Its creation is specially significant as it is constructed on site quarried sandstone, built by local craftsmen to harvest a renewable resource without expending non-renewable energies. Commendable feat, each one of these. Imridul is our guest speaker today, as is evident, and he's an internationally awarded architect, a recipient of prestigious awards in India, Istanbul, and Vienna. His projects and articles have been published in leading national and international magazines. His practice is an interesting mix of various typologies: institutional, public housing, museums, religious, and so on. Uh, but each typology and practice committed to conservation and judicious use of resources. He believes that India is endowed with a rich repertoire of traditional construction and design practices that can be innovated upon and applied to contemporary designs to achieve eco friendly, sustainable architectural creations that do not guzzle on energy. He was designated a leader of sustainability for the Executive Master of Natural Resources program of the Virginia Tech University, USA, a course designed for mid career professionals. He does have a very long bio, but this is where I'm going to stop, and I will invite you, Mridulji, to now take over from here.
Good afternoon. the chairman, Mr. Uh, Ashok, I suppose member secretary Dr. Ravinder Singh is not here, Manisha ji. Our forebears left behind a huge legacy of knowledge system to keep the world water positive, strengthening the weakest link of the five elements. Unfortunately, with time, the focus has shifted, and today, one-fifth of the world is plunged in water crisis, including India. To my reckoning, this crunch is a man-made crisis, an issue more of management rather than availability of fresh water. But the good news is that the water heritage is resilient enough to bounce back to use and offer solutions to mitigate the current water crisis. Even though the principal subject for discussion today is contemporization of historic water architecture, exemplified by a 21st century stepwell that we have done in Jodhpur, Birkha Bawari, but it cannot be viewed in isolation as a standalone project. It has a long historical context behind it. It is a part of a centuries long canvas portraying the heritage of traditional water bodies. For a variety of reasons, the continuous work on this time canvas had got halted. Birkha Bawari only marks a small attempt at restarting the much needed work on this canvas. This talk is about attempts at mitigating the crisis by perpetuating the rich legacy of water heritage, by contemporizing the traditional water architecture by way of its regeneration, iteration, and mainstreaming. I think the day before, Dr. Yuta Jain spoke about history and morphology of stepwells and covered India. I'm going to focus only on Jodhpur, the Thar Desert, and especially the city of Jodhpur. And shall use this as an example which can be expanded for the rest of the country. Why is it not changing? Escape. Okay, thanks. But before I begin, I would like you to see carefully this image, which is the essence of this discourse. Part of this image, the scramble for water, is the real picture. The rain in the background has been added graphically to depict the reality of the picture. It is a commentary on our folly. Essentially, this picture brings out the dichotomy. Nature provides fair amount of water, yet we remain stressed for water. Despite ample precipitation, we harvest only 8% of the total rainfall the country gets. We have forgotten the art of harnessing indigenous water and collecting rainwater where it falls. The presentation has been divided broadly in three parts. The first is briefly about the urban water heritage of Jodhpur and its journey from being sustainable to going into a state of suspension. The historic city of Jodhpur had a diverse portfolio of water bodies to divert and capture every drop from the sky. From collection, if you see the top row, it's from the catchment, the water gets collected in various lakes and, some of the valleys which have been embanked, so they start collecting over there. And from there, they bring it to the city in larger tanks. The second row shows subsurface water, and those are variants of wells. There are Bawaris, there are Jalras, there are normal wells. And at the micro level, you see that spout, so that collects rainwater, and that courtyard that you see under that courtyard is Tanka. So they collect rainwater in houses, and this is, of course, the Umaid Bhavan Palace where they collect it. So every drop of rain that falls in, what used to fall in this place, was diverted, collected, and it used to keep Jodhpur water positive even during periods of drought. Whatever surplus water was there would go on to a seasonal river called Jojri, and that would nourish all the farms and the villages along its course. So, from macro to micro, simple to ornate, they collected as much water as possible to last for as long as possible. Ironically, saving for a rainy day, a phrase whose literal and figurative meanings are strikingly opposite in this context. In the typology of water bodies, natural lakes are the primary ones set in natural surroundings. This is actually the fort, and the fort is perched on the highest uh, point of the Aravali's outcrop. I mean, Jodhpur is, of course, on an outcrop of Aravali, and this is the highest point from where you can see any enemy coming. And when you see on the uh, right hand side, you'll see the city that's on the plains, and on the left hand side, this is the catchment area where they would collect water. So they had a very beautiful way of collecting water. Water would get collected in the undulations over here and get distributed into the city. And these are two lakes that you can see, one at the upper level, one at the lower level. The upper level one was made by one of the Ranis, and that was only for royal use. And this one at the lower level was made by a philanthropist, and it was for public use. This is Ranisar Lake, and you can see there were brackets. There used to be Persian wheels over there, and the water would be drawn up into the fort. And they had a very beautiful water distribution system within the fort. And these cascading steps that you see, very well proportioned, and rituals from birth to death would take place here, including weddings and all. People would come here for that. The secondary typology would be these water tanks, and these are in midst of the dense fabric of the city. The lakes and these tanks would normally be centralized. They would be under the control of the royal family, and of course people would be allowed, because there's a secondary one. They would perform their rituals over there. They would have some festivals like Gangor and all happening over there, but they were not allowed to actually go into the water. So there was a very, you see, good SOP of how they were using water. So they collected water in the subsurface water bodies, brought them into the city and the lakes, and these tanks had permeable base from where the water would trickle into the aquifers, and from the aquifers, the water would go into variety of wells. So this is a very simple well, and this well where you see water agitated, this well is actually on an aquifer which is flowing. So I was, when I discovered this well, and I was there for almost half an hour, 45 minutes, and the water was always agitated, which showed that this is actually a flowing aquifer. These wells are normally in the city chalks, and these city chalks become social spaces also, and they would be covered by some buildings, and they would be protected. Invariably there would be a tree in the chalk, so it kind of, in those times they never had what you call social spaces in the houses. Very, only the rich ones would have things like living rooms and all. So all the social activity, etc., used to happen outside the house, and this is how they used it. And this is yet another very interesting subsurface typology. It's a square jhalra. It's called jhalra, unlike the Bawari, and you can see the way the steps are over there. These are basically retention walls, and the steps that you see there in form of a jhalar, a frill, and that's why these are called jhalra, to the best of my knowledge. These would be either on a trade route or the route leading to the city, and they would be used for religious rituals also. Even today, people, when they come back from funerals, that's where they come and take bath. They have bath houses around this. An exquisite variant of wells is these Bawaris, these linear ones, embedded in multiple neighborhoods. And these were the more intimate socio-cultural buildings, especially for women, as fetching water fell in their domain. The underground pavilions and chambers in the flanking walls provided space for women to gather for social interaction in the cool privacy, away from the gaze of men and scorching sun. For a few women, this was the only outing they had amid daily chores and domestic responsibilities. These would be sliced in the thinnest of spaces that you would find in the dense fabric, unidirectional, linear chambers built inside. If you can see those two things jutting out, so very, very interesting. And it would have these the tributed system, column and beam system in between. So depending on what kind of soil you would have over there, I mean, the distances between these pavilions would be determined. If the soil was very, very soft, because it is on a hillock, But if the soil was very soft, you would find more such pavilions in tributed beam and column systems. The Jalras and Bawaris were literally treated and built like temples to water. The spires and shikhars of the temples reached out for the sky, whereas for the water temples, they would go down into the earth with water in the sanctum sanctorum. A visit to these water temples is a pilgrimage like no other in the world. Very interesting special characters emerge in the study of the setting of the three variants of these wells. The first that you see is a normal draw well. It has a chalk outside, so the social space happens in the chalk. When you go to the Jalra, it is confined in four walls, but it is more open, and it's more like a conference kind of a situation. And the Bawari offers social space, very introverted, offering privacy, set in small voids of the thick fabric. The wells and the variants were built on roadsides, inside temples, inside mosques, in private houses. And on this Google picture, you will see that those are the oldest water bodies, Ranisar and Padamsar, and there's a road leading down there, and you can see so many water bodies over there. So it kind of gives a sectional understanding of the city. And these wells were so numerous that you would find any well within walking distance. So fetching water became much, much easier over here. But with the afflictions of changing times, the legacy of water heritage was lost to the lopsided development that is the bane of modern India. In fact, it was during the colonial rule that they started promoting a lot of dams in these canals. They would say it's for agriculture, but basically it was for eking more revenue. But this, as a solely independent dispensation, has proven to be dismally insufficient. What we needed to do was we had the indigenous water system that should have been complemented with this, but we completely ignored that. Plenitude of piped water supply altered the concept of consumption and conservation of water, especially because instead of having to fetch water, it was tapped to home. It was then a great technological stride. In the euphoria, we all got on the gravy train, leaving behind the rich legacy of water heritage built over centuries. And the new generations could never venerate the water heritage that we had. This resulted in a complete breakdown of the connect between communities and their most revered resource. There are these three C's, as in alphabets, which have pushed these water buildings into dormancy and oblivion. The first C is the callousness on part of the state with which these lovely water bodies have been abandoned and are now in a shambles. The second C is the state's complacence when these were desecrated and encroached upon. Even the state is doing that. They have a lot of these installations happening over there. Then there are these two houses. Now this wall is almost bulging and we can't do anything about these walls. Because the moment we start repairing this wall, the whole thing is going to come down, and these people don't relent. And the third C is government's complicity in destruction process by allotting mining leases in the catchment areas. So some of the catchment areas have been completely destroyed. But despite all this, now this is, what used to be temples of water have become tombs of water. This is one of the 1653 AD. This is a step well nobody even knows about it. Accidentally we discovered that this is a step well. The water scarcity has sparked a scramble for water in even regions which fall in the sufficient and high rainfall areas. This portends a trend that is likely to become common in India if not taken care of in time. Even in Jodhpur, when we were running low on water, the government started drawing water from a village called Ransi nearby. And they extracted so much water that that village went dry. Even today, they cannot do farming over there. So neither Jodhpur is benefited out of it, nor have those villages. Now, of course, they've stopped it. On the other hand, the unharnessed water gets converted into flood into cities. Monsoon, which was once seen as a festival, is now dreaded as it causes severe waterlogging and havoc. Most of the rainwater is allowed to fritter away, and the total volume of water consumed is far less than what the stormwater gives us. These facts are, although disheartening, yet hope-inducing, because we know that we have a catchment, we have water which we can start harnessing. These two juxtaposed maps bring out the stark dichotomy of state of water in India. These are two maps, I mean, this shows the annual average rainfall, which is about 1100 mm in India, total precipitation. And this is the state of, water availability, 54% of water. And this is, I suppose, 5 or 6 years old, or even older than that, this map that I'm using. So on one hand, this map shows that there's enough water, on the other, that we don't have enough water. So this doesn't quite add up. Why is it that a country which has had such a rich water heritage is thirsting for water? And we have to do something to, make up for this. There is a lot of water, and I know that movements have started and they're gathering storm now, but yet we are quite far, and we need to proceed with the speed of emergency. Amidst a growing challenge of meeting the deepening water crisis, it has now become vital that the current water system is decolonized and indigenized again by making the local rains the primary source of water. So the second part of this presentation is about regeneration and mainstreaming of abandoned water buildings. For the last over 1 decade, we have started putting together the practice and the idea of contemporizing traditional water architecture by their reactivation. So this is a very unique kind of water structure that we have. You must have seen a helical kind of a step well. This is a rectangular kind of but the steps go in a helical way. So it goes almost about 100 feet deep. And the unique thing about it is that in Jodhpur, the material of construction is stone, but they've used brick, and this must have been in 18th century. I'm told the queen had come from Gujarat, and she probably brought in some building material from there. Otherwise, bricks you still don't get in Jodhpur, you have to import them. Starting with documentation, we did the condition assessment, we took up conservation of the structures, restored to the original shape as much as possible, cleaned the water, mainstreamed it to the city. But we are taking care that every time we are doing conservation, we make sure that we bring pressure upon the government to connect it to the city network, because that's the principal purpose of these water wells. This is how, when we got it, it had a lot of vegetation growth inside. There were a lot of structural damages that were happening over there. So by and by, we started removing these muck. We first extracted water, dewatered it, cleaned the water, got them tested and all. So this is the before and during cleaning process that we were doing. You can see how dirty that was, and very gradually started cleaning. We can't even use anything harsh over there. These are the arches. Now this particular one has got 3 chambers of about 25 feet by 25 feet, which when water gets filled completely. Otherwise those are social spaces. And you can see that all the plaster had come off, so we started replastering it. We used lime and the kitchen recipes like Google methi, which is now quite normal and everybody uses that. The most challenging job in such projects is removal of vegetation. There are many people who don't even want to touch if it's a peepal tree. Then we have to call some people who don't have any problem dealing with peepal tree. So, I mean, the growth is also because they've been abandoned for years, almost 80, 90 years. So look at the growth. So we number the stones, remove them piece by piece, remove the vegetation, and then put the stones back using very minimum mortar, and that's lime mortar. The bird and the nest housed in this Bawari have been moved to another place without causing harm. The endeavor is to regenerate the entire precinct, including the chalks around, and re-establish the cultural perspective of this project. This is another typology, Bawari. This is a 16th century stepwell, Navlakha Bawari, in midst of a very large public park, Umed Udyan. So this is in a pitiable condition. The reason why we did not just conserve and restore it, because the walls were buckling and there was imminent danger of these walls caving in. That's the reason we restored these. So all these fallen pieces that you see of columns and beams, we got new ones, matched them in terms of color and design. Although we did not make such elaborate designs, but I mean, at least shapes we did that, and we are holding these 2 walls together now. This conservation work was, so now we keep looking for people who would give us money, whether they are CSR funds or foundations. This conservation work was funded by Hinduja Foundation. This is yet another step where we have regenerated and mainstreamed Jadechi Jhalra. The picture on the left shows when we adopted it from the municipality, and then how we conserved, removed all vegetation, cleaned the water. It was a collaborative effort from neighboring community, which is very important, Intac, Jodhpur, Mehrangarh Museum Trust, and the Inner Wheel Club of Jodhpur. On the right is a plan of how it was when we took it up. There were a lot of encroachments. There still are those encroachments. And there is this neighbor who's gradually, encroaching upon the land which is on the right side. And that's what we have reimagined. It must have been the historical plan. So we plan to bring it back to at least that state. And we are talking to the government. They agreed, but then people keep changing. So we have to go and convince them again that these can be shifted out from there so that we can have this very clean and neat. So normally what we do is whenever we take up any such project, we do SketchUps. Once we have done the extraction, we remove the water, then very minutely we take all the measurements, like in all conservation projects. And then from that we create SketchUps. So that at a later stage, when something has to be done, we know the dimensions, we know how the lay of the water body would be. We don't have to take out water over and over again. Revived and returned to the community, these historic water buildings are becoming active socio-cultural spaces that would ensure their sustainability and upkeep. Even after a hiatus of over a century, they have the potential to bounce back to life as water sources, community spaces, and as environmental buildings that will enhance the ecology of the place. The conservation work is labor intensive and not material intensive. Very little material is bought, mostly lime, except in cases where restoration is imperative. So major share of the budget goes to labor wages. The water of the reactivated jhalras is now being mainstream and being supplied through pipes. This of course is a happy departure from the times when water was fetched manually from these wells. The supply through pipes is a great leveler. If there were hierarchical inequities basis caste in terms of access and reach to water when it was fetched manually, the supply through pipes has leveled the differences, ensuring uniform, equitable supply, cutting across social discriminations. Then we are also working with many organizations. There is one in Nagpur, I don't remember the name of the foundation. We're working with World Monument Fund. We're doing 8 of these Bawaris in Jodhpur with World Monument Fund. We are doing 4 in Jaipur. So we have already done the condition mapping and we are starting with conservation work in about a month's time. These are 4 in Jaipur. Water bodies, old and new, are timeless. They have to be rejuvenated, innovated upon, and created from time to time so that heritage is continuously built with every new creation. From the time Jodhpur was primarily dependent on the on-site local water resources to now, the population has increased exponentially, is going on increasing. Surely reviving all those historic water bodies will hardly be sufficient for the present population. So to keep the city water positive, it is imperative to iterate water heritage by embedding new water bodies in colonies that have come up in the last century, mandate new ones in future developments. And the third and the final part of the presentation is about contemporizing water architecture by way of iteration by creating new ones. Before I go to the case study of the project we do, there is an idea which I've been pushing with the government. We are still working on the feasibility, but I thought it's a good thing to discuss in Intac that prior to the new settlements developing outside the old walled city, there were areas of low depression. So all these blue things that you see, these are where water gets collected. So when they were doing the city, when they planned the city, they never paid attention to the natural flow of the water. So consequently, what happens is that these colonies get flooded. There's a lot of waterlogging that is happening over there. And I'll just give you one example. This is a very famous and a very elite colony called Shasnagar. So this is the kind of waterlogging that happens over there. But there are a lot of open spaces around. Many of the open spaces are not even properly attended to. Some are, but majority of them are not. So what we have proposing to the government is that part of these parks are converted into water body and these waterlogging, the water from the waterlogging areas are diverted into these. They get converted into water bodies with permeable or impermeable bases and let the groundwater recharge, and they can become very good aqua parks also. So like we have, for example, given to them one, sketch of one park. This is one park. Part of it we can take for the water body. This is how when it is at present, maybe we can have a water body here, which when filled becomes an aqua park, which when empty can become a play space for children. So this is just a proposal. I don't know when it is going to come to fruition or even if it's viable. This is a picture of the Pachetia Hill on which the historic fort is perched. Some time back, the local administration came up with the idea of developing part of the Pachetia Hills as a heritage site to enhance tourism. It was while working on this project that we pushed the idea of developing this part as a cultural precinct. So we designed a walk of about 1.5 kilometers on this Pachetia Hill, and in that 1.5 kilometers we discovered that small and big and different types of, there are 8 water bodies over there. And during our survey, we found that there are 3 more potential sites for creating new water bodies on the descending slopes of the Pachetia Hill. I'll just show you one that is part of the DPR now. This is one of the potential sites. It is in midst of a small neighborhood lying unused. People just go and throw kachra over there. So we selected this, and it has a good catchment area on top. This is a picture taken from top. So you get a depth of almost about 30 feet or something over here. This is the proposed jhalra made of local stone set into that location. So we are not even changing the shape of that location. We are in the process of conducting hydrogeological survey to check for aquifers. Otherwise, this can be filled by diverting rainwater. So till the water lasts, it can be used as a water source. When water recedes, it can be used as a theater, it can be used as a social space. And this could become a very exciting location for festivals like what we have, RIF and Sufis and all that's happening in Jodhpur. The final part of the presentation is about the successful realization of this idea, exemplified by a new step pond, Birkha Bawari, which Manisha ji just spoke about in the beginning. It's already built and operational and was completed in the year 2009. It was in the year 2003 that a new housing township, Umed Heritage, was conceived, planned at the foothills of the famed Umed Bhavan. So this is a small hillock on which you can see Umed Bhavan at top. And it is a long narrow strip of about 2 kilometers, which is between the ridge and the plains. So midway between the two, they found a long narrow ridge where they have established this new township. So this is an image of the site when work had just been initiated. A barren landscape, there was not a single tree over there, and the whole thing would reflect a lot of heat because in Jodhpur temperatures go up to 48-50 degrees centigrade. The whole site was craggy and undulating. So to make it an environmentally viable venture, it was imperative to create dense green cover and ensure continuous supply of water for its sustenance. But in a water scarce region with highly restricted state water supplied and forever dipping groundwater tables, the only salvation was in creating one's own source, in conserving rainwater using ancient wisdom. And that's when the idea of creating on-site water body like in Jodhpur captured our imagination. And that's when we proposed that we should have a step well or a step pond over there. The site of Umed Heritage Township is about 110 acres in area, designed for about 410 residential plots for a population of over 1800 when fully occupied. The master plan that you see, there's a green belt running throughout in middle of the whole project. On either side, and all these green spaces are flanked by residential plots. Of these 7 or 8 plots, we've chosen the one which is at the lowest end, and that park we have converted into the site for the Bawari. Though traditionally the square jhalra and the linear, this is Agrasen Bawari, this is from Chand Bawari. So normally you would either have a jhalra or you would have Bawari, but in doing this design of this Birkha Bawari, we have kind of combined the both. So this serves as the Jhalra serves as the forecourt, and that becomes the linear Bawari. But of course, the structure is unlike any, and to my reckoning, I mean, it has been designed in stone. I have not seen it earlier. I'll give you some details about it. So Birkha Bawari is actually an all-stone subterranean building for conserving over 17.5 million liters of harvested rainwater from the township's catchment area. Birkha in the local dialect means rain, and Bawari in the vernacular means a step well. Hence, this has been named as Birkha Bawari. It has a unique structural form. One of the greatest challenges was to obtain maximum volume of space for water by displacing minimum excavated space by construction of a retaining structure. So if we were to do a retaining wall, when we designed it, at the bottom it would become as thick as about 8 feet, because we were going almost 60 feet deep. And you would have 8 feet walls on either side, and we had very limited space, so that would leave very little space to collect water. So that's when, this is a project we did at the fort in the year 1990. So this is actually a lift, and it's almost a 12 feet thick retaining wall, and this whole wall is about 125 feet high. So we punctured this wall, got the entrance over there, we had sliced our lift into it, but what we did was we created a vault over there. And this vault is taking load of 100 feet of wall above this. So this served, because this was done by us in 91, we had it in mind, this served as an inspiration. So what we did was that these walls, we appended them and used them as masonry walls for this Bawari, Birkha Bawari. So what was otherwise 8 feet thick, now these are about almost 2 feet 3 inches thick at the lowermost portion. And you have one arcuated wall on this side, one on the other side. There's a tributed system holding the two. So the thrust from this side is nullified from the thrust from this side. That's a module which is there. So once we got it structurally validated, then we conjoined such modules one after the other. We must have done hundreds of drawings for this, hundreds of sketches for this. And this massive subterranean structure for 17.5 million liters of water is about 235 meters long, an average of 10.5 meters wide, and gradually descends about 18 meters below NGL. Each bay is about 14 meters long, and there are 14 bays in all, with varying widths and varying volumes. The last bay is circular, like a well closing the entire Bawari at the end. The structure descends about 5 stories below ground level. A network of stormwater drains converge on either side, because it's the lowermost portion from relative to the site on either side. The sluice walls, we still have to do some work on this. We have to have a non-mechanical, non-electrical filter system, but we have sluice walls on either side. So the first and second flush of rain, we divert from here, we don't let it go in, and fairly clean water then goes into the Bawari. This is the blown up cross section of the Bawari at its lowest end, showing the water depth. There's freeboard above. There are flanking houses on either side. So because it is narrow, the evaporative losses are minimum, because of the freeboard, it's a shaded area, and the east and west sun are shaded by the buildings on either side. So there are very little evaporative losses that happen over here. What is interesting is that the architecture of Birkha Bawari is truly indigenous. The principal material of construction is site sourced. The negligible energy used in its extraction, delivery, and processing and construction makes it a very low embodied energy material. So this was the hillock on which we were building, so we had to make roads, we had to create flat plots. So all the overburden of stone that we took from here, majority of it we used in making this Bawari. I mean, throwing it away outside the site would have cost us. Here we utilized it in the site itself, thus reducing the carbon emission to a negligible level. The stone from masonry and frames was hand processed on site for breaking down, shaping and sizing. The entire masonry was done manually without aid of energy guzzling machines. In the construction of this step well, most of the work from extraction to erection was done manually, so it is imperative to sustain traditional crafts and, more importantly, the craftsmen. So in the stone abundant region like Jodhpur, so we traditionally, even now, we have roofs made of stone slabs, and there is a method to pick up stone slabs, and they're very skilled masons, skilled, trained only to pick up large slabs. They are called chavaliyas. So they would have a kind of a strut, wooden strut on end of which they would have chains, and they would really carefully balance and carry it up to heights. So this is a skill which was gradually dying because now we have a lot of RCC happening. People have stopped using slabs, but we made sure that we can do our bit to conserve even this skill. So instead of using machine, we use these skilled masons to put all the larger slabs in place, the beams, whatever slabs we had over there. The residue, waste and scrap stone and chips born of the process in sizing and shaping was used as heartings, infills, backfills, foundation concrete, thus using the quantity required quarried almost in its entirety, avoiding any waste or pollution. The large volume of excavated earth for creating this massive subterranean structure was utilized in reclaiming the undulations in the site, local depressions, and balancing the contours. So with the overburdened waste of the site so completely utilized, the scrap generated in processing stone completely consumed in construction, and the excavated earth used for reclamation, a fine geological balance was achieved in making of this Bawari. The construction of this stepwell is especially significant. We've used natural materials, we've used natural resources, and the water which comes in is also gravity driven. It is kind of an eco-friendly structure celebrating both stone and water architecture. The ingress water is gravity driven, and even when we are drawing water, that's the only time we are using electricity. But this township site is producing enough solar energy. So in a way, you can say it's almost a zero energy project. And the first maintenance, we built it in 2009. The first maintenance we took up was in 2019. So you can see 10 years, we did not even have to touch it. So it's a very low maintenance project that has been created. I'll give you a quick tour of the completed project. This is the entrance to the Bawari, entrance pavilion to the Bawari. As contemporary as it is traditional, the forecourt in form of the Jalra occupies the foreground. Its magnificence starts revealing as one descends. As one gets closer, the tributed frames form a concentric view through the post and beam, offering a binocular view of the set of perforations for inlets at the far end. You can see those inlets. So you have inlets on this side and you have inlets on that side of the Bawari, 235 meters apart. Most of the stone used is rock-faced or rough-hewn, contrasting the rawness of stone with strict geometry. The descent into the earth offers varying experiences of light and shadow through varying frames of beams and columns. The columnar frames that enclose the volume at the end of the arcuated walls hold pavilions. There is one on the top which connects on either side of the Bawari, and the one at the bottom where you can actually go down and sit, and that's where the water would be when Bawari is at its fullest. So both are kind of experiential spaces. As you descend deeper, shadows deepen, outside noises muffle, and echoes amplify. The elements have retained their naturalness, and the geometry choreographed through the design makes up for the intricate lattice work typical to the ancient water architecture of India. As one goes deeper into the earth, diverse shapes of sky is offered through each varying space, each varying frame. So when you are in this rectangular kind of a situation where the beam and column frames are there, you see the sky silhouetted in a rectangle. The arcuated walls frame the sky in a kind of a parenthesis, and the final circular bay frames a telescopic view of the sky, kind of reaching out to it while simultaneously drawing the sun to light up its cavern. True to the tradition, the stepwell has been developed to serve as a public space also, with a meandering promenade, a loop of almost half a kilometer, with a park along its periphery. So once you have done the walk all around, you have almost done half a kilometer of walk. The Bawari is also a community space for people to gather and celebrate, contemporizing the socio-cultural ethos of the intimate connect that the community had with the vernacular water buildings. This is a picture of the site when the land was just acquired to develop the township, which I shared with you earlier. So this is the before and the after pictures. These bear testimony to the environmental and ecological transformation such projects can effect from barren to lush green. The transformation of the microclimate has also enhanced the commercial value of the whole project. It's in 10 years it has gone up by 10 times. The creation of this 21st century step well demonstrates that such indigenous water bodies are still viable, architecturally and financially, and that it is possible to build and expand the water heritage of the country. To mitigate the water crisis, India needs to foster an interaction between its natural and built capital, both ancient and modern, by adopting an inclusive approach in developing a sustainable water portfolio and make India water positive. However, I believe that building or reviving such water buildings is only one third of the job done. Two-thirds of the job is about sustaining by thoughtful maintenance and operation. So while in the past there was a direct connect with the water when you would go to fetch it, the community would be directly connected to it. So they took care of its upkeep and they took care of its maintenance. There was an SOP in place and it was a kind of a collective habit to look after the water buildings. But now when the water is being tapped to home, there is little scope for this direct connect. So these water bodies can only sustain if you have a deep community connect. So in our effort of contemporization, we also want to sustain what we are doing. So there are a few things that I'm going to share. So other than reviving the ancient ones and trying to create new ones, the contemporization also requires that the water heritage is brought out of oblivion and dormancy and mainstreamed into people's psyche indelibly to ensure perpetuation and sustenance of water heritage. We are also trying to collect stories around each water building, whether it is the truth or the myth, and chronicling them. Some of the stories are being recast and retold in public spaces through puppetry. This is a picture at a historic well in a plaza in the walled city of Jodhpur. An artist, Ashmi Mridul, created puppet stories about a few water buildings and staged puppet shows at respective water bodies for the communities in the neighborhood and students to recreate interest in and reverence for these water buildings. Regeneration of these historic water buildings is also resulting in generation of business and job opportunities in the neighborhood, in plazas and in streets around it. So you see the shaded portion. There is this water body, Turji Ka Jhalra. A very, very famous water body. It is on the world map now. And you see the shaded portion, the street along it. Now this is buzzing with activity. There are hotels over there, there are restaurants over there, there are art centers, there are high-end shops over there, and exhibitions have started happening. So it's giving a lot of employment to people and creating new jobs also. So this shows an amazing viability quotient of buildings which were built about 3 to 4 centuries ago. And this is like Birkha Bawari. I'll just go back to Birkha Bawari. This is a Sufi dance which keeps happening at Birkha Bawari. So that connect is gradually developing. People have started going over there. But what we have done in the traditional ones, the ones that have been revived from a situation of being desolate and abandoned, the Mailabag Jhalra, which has now become very famous in Jodhpur, has been transformed into a cultural hub. An NGO, Shvidya, has adopted this one and regular events for the community are organized here. So much so that the neighbors who never cared for the Jhalra have developed a deep interest in a bond and have taken it upon themselves to guard the Bawari. We have lectures, theatres, talks, art installations. It has been mainstreamed into the water network, distributing water to the neighborhood, serving its principal purpose. The aquatic life is also fostered and being cared for. I will end this with an excerpt from a concert held at Mailabag some time back. This is a sure way to keep the community connected to the water heritage, especially in the light of the fact that the connect by way of fetching water is no longer happening. And to keep the water heritage vibrant and maintained, the community connect is imperative. The aspiration is to revive all such water bodies and convert them into cultural hubs dotting the city. रोशनी ही रोशनी है तुमसे मिले तो कुछ गुनगुनी सी होने लगी है सर्दी तुमसे मिले तो शहर में खेलने लगी है आबादी आया मेरा है तू और मैं तेरा दिखेगा तू दिखेगा तू Thank you. I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mridulji. I think what you have done with Birkha Bawari is extremely commendable. I think you need a big round of applause for that.
Thank you.
Because as an architect, I think it's, you know, very, very courageous to integrate something in a new township. So, what was the people's acceptance? Like the developer or, who funded the project?
So that's the beauty of it. You see, normally, I mean, the promoter was from Bombay, and it is said that people who come from Bombay, they don't even spare 1 inch of land. But this one was a wise guy. He had the foresight. He knew that he cannot get water from anywhere else, but he also knew that by introducing these kind of features, he's going to enhance the value of his land, which he did. So, in fact, I should be grateful to people like him who agreed to do this kind of thing, and it's come out very successfully. We want more and more people to emulate it, and uh, when we talk to other builders and they see it as a massive project, they say it's going to be very expensive. You'll be surprised. The cost of this has come to only 4 rupees a liter. So I mean, it's not an expensive thing to do also. But it's just that, that वो just कहते हैं ना कलेजा चाहिए बनाने के लिए. That's all.
That's what you had, I think.
No, I'm talking about people who are building.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, yes. But what is the acceptance of the residents? Because are they not, apprehensive about insects, mosquitoes, things like that?
Well, while it was being the work was on the township was still on, the promoters were there. They were taking care of it. Last year they've moved away, and there are a lot of problems within the RWA. First, they're going to settle that, and they'll take it up. But fortunately, what happens is that even though it is part of a township, it does not belong to anyone. It's actually a state property because this is the open area that we have left. So we are also looking for people like Jodhpur Design has said for the first maintenance he had given us 10 lakh rupees to do the maintenance. So we'll find such people and they'll do it over the year round, even if the RWA does not agree. That's it.
As you have explained very nicely, my question goes on that the palatable water is very important for human consumption. How far the water which you have shown is completely with algae and everything, you may have tested, but when the things is not clear, it becomes difficult for a human being to have that unpalatable water in even the visibility side. So how far the water, treatment, whether it is moving, then also it is treated. If rainwater is accruing, it is also treated. If the trees are sown there, then also it is treated. So what is your study to get the water in the best of state for human consumption?
So this is a question which must have been answered centuries back when these were made. But what we are doing now is aquatic life is taking care of the pollution in the water. Even for that matter, you have this algae. So when the water was still, algae is bound to form. So we are putting aerators over there. Even traditionally, if you see, not all wells had water which was fit for consumption. Water was used for variety of different applications. So that is still there. The water which is not potable is used for infrastructure, and then there are water which is potable. Earlier they used to take water from here, just filter it at home. Now we've got very good filters, whether it's AquaGuard or it goes to the state filters, and then it is given back if it is potable. So not all water is potable. Birkha Bawari certainly does not have potable water because we still have to put filters in place.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
How much time did it take you to build Birkha Bawari?
2.5 years. 2.5 years.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. We started in the end of year 2006, or maybe January 2007, and March 2003 and 2009 we completed the project.
And if it is not potable water, then you use that water for irrigation purposes.
Yeah, I showed you that slide from barren to that green. So that's all maintained by this.
And who is in charge? I mean, this question has been answered, but I'm very interested in knowing the not just the maintenance, but even that water management and everyday process. Who's in charge of it?
So when
The
this
government?
no, not yet. So when it was built, the promoters were still there. So they put into place a system where water would be drawn from it and it would be used for irrigation. So they have, drip irrigation system and they have all those things. So water is automatically every day it comes out of it and it's used over there. So right now nobody is touching it, but we need people, that's for sure, who can take care of it.
Maintenance. Thank you so much, Mridulji, because this topic is not only for heritage aqua architecture. Okay, we have our natural heritage person who wants to ask a question. Sorry.
Mridulji, congratulations. An excellent job, brilliant concept, very powerful image.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know whether it's a storage project or is it a recharge project?
No, it's a storage project.
Because it seems the masonry is sealed.
No, I mean, we could have made it a recharge project by not lining the base, but we've done that. So, I mean, it does work as a recharge because you can't always stop the leakages. So it does go into the ground. But we are not taking water from the ground for sure. So it's not a well, it's a pond. It's fashioned as a step well, all right, but it's a step pond.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for the beautiful presentation. Yeah. I have you had shown in your initial presentation you had shown that the stormwater issues in various areas of the city. Does this also in any way addresses that or manages that? Like, did you also manage to direct any stormwater from that area, from maybe the housing society, or in the Umaid Bhavan, the hill of Umaid Bhavan, the water, rainwater that comes from there? Has all of that also been in some way channeled into this Bawari?
So not all of it can be taken care of in these Bawaris.
Yeah.
So we have to divert a lot of water where it was naturally flowing. So what we are doing is that however much water we can capture, that we are doing, the rest will go.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
What about the overflow of this? I mean, ever has it happened?
Yeah,
Is
it has
full?
happened when there have been flash rains. It
Okay.
happens, it overflows, but water flows out. We
Okay.
have provided passage to water. Yeah.
Sir, when you trying to construct any Bawaris, so slope of the land you take into account so that the gravity does its own action.
So-
Is that so?
So that's what we've done in Birkha Bawari. We selected the lowermost portion on the site. So we have water, storm water coming in from both the ends.
Any more questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because, involving, huh? Not at all. Not at all. No, I just wanted to say that our traditional wisdom is so well in tune with the natural conditions of that region that not only in water architecture but food practices, vernacular architecture, those elements are very suitable. So contemporizing wisdom from tradition is maybe, taking from the past into the present and moving towards the future. So now may I invite upon our chairman, Shri Ashok Singh Thakur, to give a small token of our appreciation to Mridulji. We also have some publications that Intac has done for you to read. And maybe we can have a photo with all the some of the Intac people. Purnima, Manu, Vijaya, please come. Mitali, since you asked a question, you definitely have to be in the photograph. If I